When you hear the term survival horror, it's likely that the Resident Evil franchise is the first to come to mind. Capcom's popular series is widely regarded as the originator of the genre, having introduced many of its defining characteristics in the original game. In addition to laying the groundwork for a richly detailed universe, Resident Evil has also garnered a devoted fan base among gamers. It's worth noting, however, that not every game in the series is a winner. That said, we've compiled a list of the top 10 Resident Evil games. If you've recently completed the fantastic Resident Evil 4 Remake and are in need of a new gaming experience, our ranking of the top Resident Evil games may offer some compelling options. So, dim the lights, pump up the volume, and maybe even grab a snack as we delve into what may just be the ultimate Resident Evil game of all time. Following the excellent remake of Resident Evil 2, expectations were high for the release of Resident Evil 3 Remake. Unfortunately, the end product felt rushed and disjointed, with entire sections of the game removed and replaced by a brief, heavily scripted experience that prioritizes action over puzzle solving. While the visuals are impressive and the controls feel smooth, it's hard not to be disappointed by the game's brevity and lack of depth. On a positive note, there are a few standout moments scattered throughout the game, such as a visit to a creepy hospital and an extended action sequence with Carlos that will leave players on the edge of their seats. The game also opens with an impressive sequence set in the city. While Resident Evil 3 Remake is certainly a flashy, enjoyable experience, it's hard not to imagine what could have been if the developers had taken the time to expand upon the events of the original game, rather than stripping away so much of its content.
This is Chopper Delta, preparing to drop off at area E95070.
While it may not be available on Xbox consoles, I feel it's worth mentioning the original Resident Evil 3 for the sake of completeness and because, in my opinion, it remains superior to the flashy remake in many ways. Admittedly, the game has not aged particularly well, but it was a major release at the time and introduced some groundbreaking features. The Nemesis system, for example, was a remarkable addition that greatly increased the sense of tension and danger. Additionally, the game incorporated life choices that would lead to different areas and impact other aspects of the story based on the player's decisions. Resident Evil 3 also brought several gameplay innovations to the series, including the ability to dodge enemy attacks and the inclusion of the Mercenaries mode. Although it may seem dated by today's standards and may not appeal to younger gamers, Resi 3 still holds a special place in our hearts. I have a feeling that ranking Resident Evil 5 this high on my list might be a bit controversial, but I personally spent countless hours playing and replaying this over-the-top gem and enjoyed every minute of it. Looking back on it now, the game certainly has its flaws, but at the time, I was blown away by the game's setting, which took place in bright daylight and featured non-stop action. I also loved the character of Shiva and the Mercenaries mode, which I played to death. Despite being an older game, Resident Evil 5 still holds up well in my opinion. The game features a number of intense face-offs against hordes of enemies, and the co-op campaign was an absolute blast to play through with a friend. Playing as Shiva also offered a fresh perspective and added to the game's replayability. I understand that not everyone is a fan of this entry in the series, but I have many fond memories of playing Resident Evil 5. Now we're entering the cream of the crop. Resident Evil 2, released in 1998, was a game changer. It took what fans loved about the original game and ramped it up in scale and scope, delivering a product that was a significant improvement in every way. The game's setting was another massive leap forward, featuring stunning locations such as the Raccoon City streets and RCPD building, which provided jaw-dropping and terrifying sequences of survival horror. In short, if you were a gamer in the late 90s, this game would have blown your mind. Resident Evil Village marked a departure from the horror-heavy Resident Evil 7, instead opting to adopt a style more akin to the fan-favorite Resident Evil 4, complete with werewolves and a seductive vampire antagonist. While it initially left me wanting more in terms of genuine scares, subsequent replays revealed a tightly paced adventure that never fails to entertain. The opening village sequence, where you're heavily outnumbered by lycanthropes, the grandiose castle section, and the eerie house Beneviento all offer distinct experiences that make for a cohesive whole. Although I wasn't a fan of Ethan Winters, I appreciated his involvement in a game that boasts some of the series' best action set pieces, including a thrilling run through a werewolf stronghold that had me frantically dodging attacks.
I got you. Give me your other hand.
Deciding which is better between the original Resident Evil 2 and its remake is a tough call, but after a recent replay, it's clear that the remake takes the cake. The game takes everything that made the 1998 classic great and refines it into a tightly woven and exhilarating campaign that doesn't let up for a moment. The remake's opening sequence is a showcase of the series' impressive graphics engine, and the pacing of the game is spot on, alternating between tense exploration, brain-bending puzzles, and terrifying encounters with the relentless Mr. X. The remake perfectly blends the old and the new, honoring Hideki Kamiya's original vision while bringing it into the modern era with seamless ease.
Thanks. Boy, now look what you've done, motherfucker. This is the end, you know?
We're now reaching the top of my list with Resident Evil 7, which left a lasting impression on me. Ethan Winters' debut adventure is a non-stop thrill ride of terror, maintaining an almost unbearable level of tension throughout most of the story. Although I absolutely adore this game, I find it difficult to muster the courage for a replay due to its grim and gory nature. However, once you overcome that initial fear, the game is utterly captivating and impossible to put down. The game's return to survival horror, following the disappointing sixth installment, was exactly what the franchise needed.
What's your sit rep?
President's daughter, Baby Eagle. It's likely she's in this village.
Our intel was correct then. Well done.
After considering my options, I have to say that the exceptional Resident Evil 4 Remake earns third place on my list. However, I simply cannot rank it higher than the game that it takes all of its finest features from. When I first played the remake, I was apprehensive that it might not live up to the original's greatness, but once I had battled through the iconic village opening, I knew that I was in for a real treat. While some fans may not appreciate the removal of certain aspects, I found that the adventure flowed more smoothly, the new combat mechanics were all top-notch, and the game achieved a perfect balance of modernity and old-school Resident Evil 4 charm.
Okay. It's game time.
For most fans, this entry is considered the zenith of the Resident Evil franchise. It shook things up by ditching the slow-burning survival horror for action-packed set-pieces, over-the-top theatrics, and introduced new mechanics like the iconic over-the-shoulder camera, which revolutionized the action game genre. Resident Evil 4's influence is still felt today, and no matter how many times I've played it in various iterations, VR is a must-try. I never tire of its rhythm and flow. While the new remake may improve on it in some ways, let's not forget that this original masterpiece paved the way. I could go on, but suffice it to say, Resident Evil 4 is undoubtedly one of the greatest games of all time. In my opinion, the original Resident Evil is still the best game in the series, and this HD remake is the perfect way to revisit the iconic Spencer Mansion without dealing with the clunky tank controls of the past. I still remember the excitement I felt on release day in 1996 when I rushed to the nearest town to get my hands on a copy after months of obsessing over every magazine article and screenshot. The game exceeded all of my expectations and hooked me on the series, keeping me coming back for every subsequent installment over the past 28 years. I understand that the OG Resident Evil may not have the same impact for newer players, but for me, it's where it all began, and there's just nothing else like it. From the first glimpse of a zombie turning its rotten head towards the camera to the iconic live-action pre-credit sequence and the unforgettable line,
"Blood. Hope this is not Chris's blood."
The game still stands up amazingly well today. Even with the revamped version and modern controls, the story, puzzles, and set pieces remain gloriously atmospheric and addictive, cementing its place at the top of my list. It's clear that over the years, the series has undergone significant changes, with some entries pushing towards more action-oriented gameplay while others return to the series' survival horror roots. But regardless of personal preferences, there's no denying the impact this franchise has had on gaming and the horror genre as a whole. So, what do you think of my ranking? Do you agree or disagree? Be sure to let me know your own personal rankings and opinions in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for future iconic top 10 lists and more gaming content. Thanks for watching. And until next time, peace out.
What the hell is this thing?